Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie Spencer, also known as Miss Jamie OT, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing a friend of mine, Kim Wiggins. So, Kim, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thank you, Jamie. And my name is Kim Wiggins, and I am an occupational therapist. I work full-time for a city school district in upstate New York. And then I also have been a national presenter for almost 10 years now. And I primarily teach webinars, but I also travel around the country. And I am really excited to talk to you tonight.
Thank you. Me too. It's fun. I feel like I'm talking to a girlfriend instead of doing an interview.
Yeah.
So this morning, I sent out an email to my Miss Jamie OT VIPs, my email subscribers, and I couldn't get over the amount of people that wrote me back. And I had told them, as you know, because you were one of the people who wrote me back, about sensory pathways and how it's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine that these sensory pathways are all over the news and people are acting so shocked like it's the best idea in the world to have kids, moving and exercising in the middle of the day. And it annoys me because number one, I feel like, well, yes, of course kids need to move. This is how it used to be in the old days before the curriculum became so, difficult that there's no time for kids to exercise and play. And, as OTs, of course, we know that better than anybody. But I also said it kind of irks me and makes me cranky that people are calling it a sensory pathway when it's really a movement opportunity or a movement break for kids, which they need. And I think so many people misinterpret the word sensory as it is. And now people are, with this new trend, using it interchangeably with just movement. So
Right.
what do you think about that? Because I did share you were on the news recently about the motor labs that you did in Binghamton, New York. And I was so impressed and proud of you about that. And I shared it with my people too. So I wanted to know, as someone who created that and are running those kinds of programs in your schools, does that make you cranky too?
Well, the first time I saw the sensory path was on Facebook, and I was scrolling through it, and I was like, what is that? And how come they're not advertising it that an OT has created it, or an OT, it was involved in that? And nothing really was mentioned on Facebook or through any of those mini articles about OT. I did do some research about the first one that was originated in Canada, and actually the principal that was on the news did talk about the occupational therapists in their building and how important it was for people, if they want to increase movement in their schools, to make sure they talk to their occupational therapist. I only saw that because I read it in the article, and of course I'm an OT, so I picked up on it, but it's not advocated as much as I think it should be. So yeah, I mean, we all agree that there should be more movement, and I think that teachers are picking up on this for sure. I think that they realize they're doing go noodle breaks every 30 minutes, something like that. But the sensory path, the term sensory path is probably the annoying part about it, but the idea is pretty cool, like the fact that, yeah, they're transitioning from one place to another, but they're working on sensory motor types of activities, right? They're
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
It drives me crazy. I don't know why. And I'm not usually a cranky person, but this really was bothering me. And
Yeah.
I wrote, when I wrote it in the email, a bunch of OTs wrote me back. And I mean, when I tell you bolded and in all caps, I completely agree with you. And I did kind of mention that I feel sometimes like other people within the school system are putting these together. And it's not like it's rocket science. It isn't. But when it comes to pediatrics and children and fine motor development, OTs are the experts. And it just seems like people aren't including us. And, that makes me cranky too.
Well, I have a little bit of a funny story about that, because as I was scrolling through it, the reason I saw it the first time was because our assistant principal tagged the social worker in the sensory pathway for our school, and luckily I saw it, and I wrote and I commented and I said, don't forget about me, I want to be involved. And so thank God. I don't know why we aren't connected with that, especially because I have been using the motor labs. They know exactly that I'm the coordinator of the motor lab and it's used in our school and that type of thing. So I don't know. It's very
Me
interesting.
neither. I do think it goes back to, OTs need to advocate more than ever for our role and what we do. And even if people do know, they're just not reaching out to ask for that. One of my buildings in my school district just recently did this entire overhaul of flexible seating. And my building had done the same thing, but their whole building was, they did it like the works, like tons and tons of classrooms and the best, most funnest stuff that you could think of for flexible seating. And I'm the only OT for the district, and I didn't even know about it. And I'm like, I feel like OT should be included in those kinds of things, but
Mhm.
it wasn't.
I know that happened to me this year in a kindergarten classroom, that it's all decked out and all this flexible seating and nobody even asked me once. So it's interesting, and I'm happy about it. I mean, I've done in-services after in-services after in-services at all of these schools that I work in. So I feel like maybe that's why. Maybe they felt like they've learned so much that they can go ahead and do that. And that's what I want. I want them to be able to use these things without having to ask me every 5 seconds also. But I still want to be involved. Like, I still want to be able to help out. I might have been able to find a cheaper price or a different kind or something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think education is the key. And I also think that OTs are not used to bragging, I guess you would say, about all the stuff that we do. And I think that we need to brag more often, because I think that we do pretty amazing things. It doesn't feel comfortable to brag, but we have to. And that's where when the news came, I just randomly messaged the news station and they wrote me back in 5 minutes. I was in a mood that day where I was like, well, I need to get more attention for this because this is a lot of work, And so that just happened that day. And then it blew up into this really exciting project. So
Yeah. So you were feeling feisty and you
yeah, sometimes you get,
and look what happened. It's amazing.
yeah.
Awesome. So now that we're talking about bragging, let's talk about your motor labs that you got on the news for. So how did that get started? How did you have the idea for it?
So 5 years ago, I was working in a school this is the first year I'm not in that school since then, but this is a school that has a lot of behavior issues. It definitely has a lot of needs, and it only has one little playground, and then they have 2 blacktops. And what happens, especially in the winter months, is they go out, they don't go outside, so they go to the auditorium to watch a movie for the whole lunch
Oh,
break.
that's horrible.
And then the kindergarten students are in the hallway, and they're just kind of like playing with like jump ropes or hula hoops or things like that in the hallway. And I was like, this is ridiculous. These kids really need to be moving. And because I'm a presenter, I had all these different connections, and I found through the grapevine, I found the program called Ready Bodies, Learning Minds. And it's a program that was created by Athena Odin, who's a physical therapist. And I bought the book, which you have to buy the book, and it has all the different centers in there. And I studied it. I was like, okay, how can we figure this out? So I then talked to the principal. You always have to have a really good connection with your administrators, because they're the ones who are going to say yes or no to these types of things.
Yeah,
So I talked
definitely.
to her. I talked to her about the idea of it, and I was really I'm an advocate for checking primitive reflexes. I don't necessarily think we always have to be addressing primitive reflexes, but it's definitely interesting that as the behaviors and academic issues are increasing, I'm also noticing that there's an increase in retained primitive reflexes. And I had a fieldwork student, so we were approved to just check every single kindergartner that school year, which was 100 kindergarten students.
Wow.
Checked all 100 kindergarten students for primitive reflexes, and it was anywhere between 35 and 60% of each classroom of the students had at least one retained primitive reflex. So we were like, well, that's a little bit of information, like data that we can use to like promote the motor lab. So I started the motor lab in the hallway just using equipment that I had, and it was very successful. The kindergarten teachers really loved it. And 2 years later, the principal decided to actually buy the equipment that you can buy from that company, just to make it a little easier for me, because I was like always scrambling trying to find the equipment. And
Bugging the physical education teachers.
yeah, and like PTs, and we kind of like have this ownership of our stuff,
Right.
and see what we like. I only need it for 2 weeks, but it might get damaged because there's all these kids that are using it. So, and it's in the hallway. So we were using it in the hallway, and I also then was approved to do a real research study, a formal research study, and we had really good results from that as well. So when I was sitting last year at the new school not the new school, the school I've been working in, an additional school, I was sitting in a kindergarten meeting, and the kindergarten teachers were being told that this school year they were going to get 25 incoming kindergarten students with IEPs and 504s. That's a lot. That's a lot of them.
Oh my gosh, that's really a lot.
So they're kind of freaking out, like, what are we going to do? Why are there so many needs? And so I was like, I have an idea. I've been doing this at the other school. I brought it up, the whole motor lab idea. They love the idea. And I said, we've been using it at this other school for like four years now. And the principal said, if you can write a grant to buy the equipment, then I'll give you a room, she said. So that's what happened. So we've been doing it, and actually this school is even more successful because there's been 19 teachers that have signed up for the motor lab that come on a regular basis between 1 and 5 times a week, and that's over 320 students that are attending every day. So, or not every day, but every week.
That's amazing. That's a lot of kids.
Yeah, so it's helping. It's a school-wide movement initiative that I was able to use, and start and coordinate. But I had to collaborate with those kindergarten teachers to get the idea in their head, and like that we really need it. That it's really, really important to have them move and work on those developmental skills.
So let me ask you, I'm just trying to figure out how that would work in my building, because I did send the news article to my principal, and he's always on board with new and exciting things too. And he said, let's do it. I was just trying to work it out in terms of the space. So like, how much space do you need, and who changes the stations every 2 weeks, and who teaches the children how to do each exercise? Like, because you can't be there all the time.
Right. Well, I am going to be teaching a webinar all about this next week, actually, and it has all the details about that. And then it also has details and research about movement, and also about sensory paths. But overall, what happens is I change the centers every 2 weeks. I've created these little mini videos that I filmed a 4th grader doing all the different centers, and then I combined them into little 3-minute movies. And I try to make it as easy as possible for teachers, because they have to want to go, and it can't be difficult. They have so much to do every day. Like you don't want to give them extra responsibilities. So all they have to do is play the movie. The kids watch the movie before they go to the motor lab, and when they get there, they know exactly what to do, and they rotate throughout the 9 centers. And then every 2 weeks, I switch out the centers, send a new movie, and so on and so on. And it's working really well. It's worked now for 5 years.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm so excited to get started. I spoke to my phys ed teacher in the building this morning, and I was asking her, because I had asked you to send me the list of equipment, and a lot of it we do have, not all of it, but a lot of it we have. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be that crazy to get started. So I'm excited. That's awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about the webinar? I'm going to share the link with this video, but when is it, and how long is it, and is it approved for CEUs?
Yes, so it is on March 18th from 8 to 10 Eastern Standard Time. And when you purchase the live webinar, you actually get the on-demand recording for free as well. So if you miss parts of it, you can actually watch it later, which is cool. And yes, it is approved for OT CEUs. And
from AOTA?
Yes.
Okay. Great. And so it's 2 hours. That's not too bad.
Nope.
Awesome. I'm really excited. So I'm really thrilled. I'm going to take it that day, and I'm going to share it with my followers, because as I said, the response that I got this morning from my email, my Motor Monday email that I sent out to my VIPs, people were they were angry about it, but they also thought like, yes, OTs need to speak up and OTs should be doing this and schools need this and the kids need this so badly. I mean, we know OTs, the referrals are coming in like crazy, and kids, they do have these retained reflexes and the most basic of developmental skills that 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds should have, and they don't. I mean, meanwhile, the curriculum's getting harder and harder.
I think that there's 2 points that I was going to bring up. One is that I think for OTs, most of us are very overworked, right? We have huge caseloads, we have evaluations, we're doing screenings, we try to be part of these school-wide activities and meetings, but at the same time, we feel very overwhelmed. So I think and it happens to me as an OT, I don't always want to start something new because guess who's going to have to do it, right? If I bring up the idea,
That's
I'm
the
going to
story
do
of
it.
my life, definitely.
I know.
I'm so guilty of doing that.
I do it to myself, but it's so amazing because I'll tell you, this school year, I've only had 4 screenings. And this is like the re-eval year from like, I don't know where. And I've done 37 reevaluations already. But I've only had 3 actual screenings. And I think that's really interesting because I think so many people are using that motor lab as a response to intervention level 1 and level 2. And they say it. I've noticed it when I'm in a CSE meeting for an IEP student. They'll say, this is what they've been doing. The teacher talks about how they're doing, what they're doing, and they always add, and we go to the motor lab 3 times a week. Like I'm not telling them to say that. So it's really cool. And it is a lot of work for me. Now that I've been doing it, it's not as much work, nearly as much as it was when I first started it, but it's also eliminating some work. You know, it's eliminating those screenings, it's eliminating some initial evaluation. So you got to kind of balance it out. And, you know, we want to be part of stuff. So like, this is the one way to do that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm always like, we should do this, we should do that. And, you know, the
That
administration,
means we have to do it.
great, you do it.
Yeah,
So that's tough. But I'm so excited that you were able to share all this cool information with us. And I'm really looking forward to the webinar. And I think I might just do on it myself. So you suggest that? What kind of improvements did you see in your kids?
Yeah. So it's interesting in this particular school that that has 19 teachers going. There's 2 self-contained classes for children with autism. So there's 12 students in each class, and those teachers have been able to bring them to the motor lab every single day of the week because it also happens to be on the same floor. So it's really easy for them to go. And the aide and the teacher, I was in there the other day and I was teaching actually a zones of regulation group to the class. And I co-treat with a speech therapist and we're teaching the zones of regulation. And it was like a worksheet type of thing where they had to answer some questions. So I was addressing their handwriting needs and also the self-regulation part. But there were like no handwriting needs. And I looked over to the aide and I go, wow, what happened to their handwriting? And she goes, I'm telling you, since we've been going to the motor lab, we haven't seen as many handwriting issues. Everybody's handwriting has improved. Now, handwriting is another thing. Like, you know, we shouldn't be always known as the handwriting specialist either, but it's a lot of what we do, right? But at the same time, this is kind of addressing that as well. So handwriting is the number one thing. And then the teachers in like 1st and 2nd grade are telling me that they are seeing an improvement in their attention and in their behavior for about an hour after they come back from the motor lab. So what they did is they reorganized their daily schedules so that their hardest subjects are now being after the motor lab. So we're going to the motor lab, then they're doing their ELA groups or their math groups, whatever is the most challenging, because they're noticing they're getting the most attention.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's such a great way to plan. And it's a great way for OT to be involved in the whole school, you know, curriculum and initiative. And I guess it's obvious that those teachers are really learning from you and learning, you know, the impact that movement is having.
Yeah, and I mean it doesn't happen overnight. Like you have to form relationships, and I have done in-services about, you know, random things over the years, and just 5-minute in services. So they know my face, they know what I do, and I think that's part of that bragging thing that we have to talk about. We have to show our face. We have to be out there. Otherwise, they're not going to trust us with our new ideas that we have, right? So we do have to show our face way more often.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you for staying up late and chatting with me after you put your kids to bed about this. I am really excited to share this video with my readers. Again, as I said, they had so many questions, and I feel so lucky to know this famous lady on the news that I can reach out personally and get an interview.
Yeah, I'm Binghamton famous.
So we'll take it, right? You got to be famous somewhere.
That's right.
All right. Thank you so much, Kim. Have a good night.